Hey everybody, it's Dr. Hafez from Scholars Dental. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 tips for when you're registering for the AFK exam. So let's get started. All right, so before I begin, first of all, before the NDEB has released some tips for registering for the exam before one of the examinations. They released some tips and I discussed those tips in a video. It was for that specific exam. If you haven't seen that video, we'll leave the link in the description below. There's some other tips in there, so I recommend that you watch that one as well. And this one's going to be general tips that may work for the AFK exam and other AFK exams as well. The second thing is a lot of you may have not taken courses yet, and I think it's not the ideal approach. I think the ideal approach is to begin the course hoping that you will get into the exam, because when you don't take a course, you do miss out on some studying time. But I understand, it's understandable why some want to first register, get a seat, then think about a course. For those of you that are doing that, we have a solution for you. We've created something called a catch-up program. So if you do happen to get into the exam when on the day the registration opens and you are not part of a course and you're thinking to register, you could qualify. We could make your consult more of an urgent one where we need to, because you're you need to catch up, and we'll book a consult with you and discuss with you what the solution is. And it's basically a catch-up program where we design it that you enter the course where it is when you, from where you enter. But also in the upcoming weeks, you'll be doing maybe week 6 with week 1 and week 7 with week 2 and it keeps going until you complete the things you missed. Now, yes, in the first few weeks, you will be needing to put more effort to be able to compensate for the things you missed. So that's why the sooner you get in and register, the less effort and work that you'll have to do and compress in those first weeks. So again, if you happen to register for the exam, get a seat, and you're not in a course and you're wondering what to do, don't feel like you're late and because you missed out a few weeks, then it's not worth it or something. You need to prepare for this exam. You're at a disadvantage if you're not preparing with a course, and we have data to prove that. Again, if you want to book a consult, we could explain what the process would look like for you, and that way at least you're informed before you make your decision. We could present that to you and you could decide if it works for you or not. So that's it. We have the catch-up program for people that are late registrants, and that we have a system for you to catch up and look into the things you missed. And that way, in a few weeks, you'll be caught up just like you registered from the beginning of the course. All right, so that's the 2 things I wanted to cover. Now let's get to the 5 tips. So tip number 1, decide the location you want from the start. Do this way before going into the actual one. Decide your locations. So for example, before the opening day of the exam, you want to know that, okay, my priority number 1, let's say I'm going to want Toronto. Okay, and do I want prometric or paper-based? Okay, I'm going to say I want prometric. Okay, my number 2 would be Toronto paper. My number 3, make a list of maybe 10 or 20. Okay, this way you're not going to end up thinking too much, at least, or figuring that out when you're registering for the exam. Remember, it might be crowded and there's going to be traffic and you might not get a seat. All seats could be booked in a few minutes. So you need to move quick. You need to have this prepared. Know what your priorities are. Establish if you're whether willing to leave Canada or not. So are you willing to book an exam in Australia or in the UK or outside of Canada, or are you willing to go to the US? Ask yourself these questions, figure that out, because you don't want to go into your profile, open it and see, oh, there's Australia, and you're like, wait a minute, should I do that? And then while you're thinking, you're like, yeah, I should, and then you come back and it's gone, right? So you want to know ahead of time. Now, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. You just go like, okay, I'm deciding I don't want to do that. So you're going to focus on anything Canada, and then you could prioritize, okay, what's closer to you after that? Is it Ottawa? And then after Ottawa, is it this city? And then that way you look and you kind of just really check that list quickly, have that list in front of you when you're registering, and just check it with what's available on your profile when you're registering for the AFK, and just figure it out quickly, and that's it. You click on that one you're sure of, right? So that's tip number one. Decide your locations, have that, and put them in a list of priorities. You could find the locations also that they're stating, but not accurate, not like into detail. You'll just see here, if you go to the website and go to detail, go to dates and locations, you'll see that they say here, okay, they have, this is the ASCII one. We need to go to, oh, this one here, dates and locations. All right, so this is the one, they always had this. So it's, okay, parts of prometric centers in Canada, and let me zoom out here a bit. There you go. So you can see United States, Australia, New Zealand. Okay, so check if you're willing to go there. If you're not, then you're only going for Canada, then, you know, have priority cities. Even if you're not sure that city is on the list or not, just put it in. Then if it's not, then you just go to the next one. But it's better to be prepared with this. Okay, so that's tip number one. Tip number two, let me get my pen here, is, now this one, I'm not sure if it's going to apply always, but it's the check for vaccination proof. Does that center require vaccination proof or not? And is that something you're going to have to think about? Now, currently at this time, it's still on their website. Okay, some centers may want you to have, depending on the country and the city and the center, if they want you to have that or not. So just look into that as well when you register to write an exam. So know which city you're going, maybe know that ahead of your time. So that's maybe tied to the location concept. So let's say you already know your locations, check that province and its vaccination requirements or policies at that time. If it's a different country like Australia or whatever, check what they require now so that you know if you could do it or not as well. Okay, so once you figure out your locations, check those top few, their vaccination policies, to make sure that you could do it. Okay, again, this could go away in the future depending on the province and the country. So it's not an always thing, but I'll leave it as a tip just in case. Now, tip number three, I would say, is the credit card or the way you're paying. So make sure you have that all set up. Okay, so the exam so far still is $800. Okay. Again, I want this video to be, helpful for everyone taking the exam at all times. So that could change. In case if it's not $800, check what the exam price is. You could figure that out by going to equivalency process fees, and then you can see it here. So the AFK so far now, it's 800. So for example, usually this is not an issue for most. If you have 2,000 on your card or 1,000, but if you have 500, if your credit card is limited by 500, you don't want to face this problem on that day. So how do you fix this? You could preload your credit card. So for example, you could transfer, let's say your limit is 500. You could transfer another 500 from your bank account to your credit card. And then your limit for that time becomes 1,000, right? At that time, the credit card works that way. And then that way you could actually pay for the exam, the 800, and then you would have, 200 credit left plus you owe 300. Does that make sense? Because it's, you spend 300 from that 500 that you're allowed. So you could preload it and the limit stays 500. Like you can't take you can't take credit more than 500, but you could use it as a, put money in it as a little, a temporary bank account. Think of it like that, right? A wallet. So make sure your credit card is not expired, the one you want to use. If you're not using your own or someone else's, make sure you have that information. If there's any, other things you need to know about that payment method, just if you're using someone else's, make sure their credit card is not, limited to 500. Or if even if it has a limit of 1,000, make sure that it has that actually in there, right? Like it's not, the 1,000's not spent already, right? So just make sure you have that all figured out before the day of the registration. Tip number 4, use a PC or a laptop. Don't use a phone or a tablet. And actually in the previous exam, before the registration opening, the NDEB released as I mentioned in the intro, the NDEB released some tips, and they said this is what you should do. Don't use a phone or tablet. Okay. So again, we'll leave that video in the link below to go see that one from the tips that the NDEB released. But for this one, I'm just saying generally, you don't want to use a phone or tablet. Why would you risk that? You know, there's going to be some just clunky mistakes. Maybe the screen goes away and you're like, oh, how do I get it back? And just make sure you're in the ideal environment to register. So PC or laptop. And another tip here that you could add to this is don't log in from more than one device. Okay, so make sure you're only logging in from use one device. Don't have 5 laptops and you're logging into all and you're refreshing. Don't do that. Okay, go in from one device and use that one, and make sure it's a PC or laptop. Pretty simple. And then tip number 5 is, I think hopefully is the obvious one. Make sure you have a good internet connection. Okay, you have to be prepared. Don't leave it to chance. Don't say I'm using some sort of box or someone Wi-Fi. Make sure go to a central library if you feel like you don't have good internet, and they do. Go to somewhere where there is good internet. Go to someone's house that has good internet. Use your phone, tether your phone to it if you need. I would say the best way, if you have internet at home, is to get an Ethernet cable and just wire your internet. Link your computer, your laptop through Ethernet to the internet router or modem or source, whatever you're using there. Connect it through Ethernet. I think that's the most reliable instead of using Wi-Fi. But if you are using Wi-Fi and that's working for you always now, you're not having internet connection issues, then that's fine. But anyway, just make sure you have good internet on that day. There's no excuses for that. If you're not prepared, they don't care. They're not going to give you any, hey, okay, sorry about that. Let's let you register. If you don't have a connection, then they're going to say it's your problem, right? So make sure that is covered. All right, so that's pretty much it. That's the 5 tips I have for you. I could add maybe another tip, a bonus tip. Confirm the dates, of course, of the exam. The date of the registration opening and the time. And do this frequently. I've seen that they could change the time. So it could be like 9 a.m., they make it 10 a.m. Or it could be 10 a.m., make it 9 a.m. And make sure you calculate the time zone difference properly. So it's EST, for example, Toronto time. Make sure you calculate that. And now from previous experience from the last one, a lot of people there's a lot of rumors about, okay, well, should you log in from multiple browsers or from which browser? From what I've heard, I know people that logged in from one browser and got in, and people logged in from multiple browsers and got in. So I don't think it makes a difference. That's just my opinion. I think just use one browser and refresh it and try to get in. I think it's better not to risk messing around with the system or log in from multiple devices. They're saying don't do that. So just hope that it will work out for you. And I think those are the tips I have. Again, if you do get a seat, congratulations. You have an opportunity. Don't waste it. Be prepared. If you've taken a course, remember, without a course, you have a 16% chance of passing. That's not good, but it's actually, I think it's lower because I think people that don't take courses probably don't have access to our surveys. And if you do take any course, any course will bring you up to 50% chance, which is 3 times more. So any course is better than no course. If you take a good course and that's within a year of taking the exam, you could bring your numbers up to 80%. We know how to make your number 83% chance of passing. If you want a free consult, we could discuss that with you. So if you do get in and book a seat for the exam and you're not taking any course, please don't risk your attempt. You don't want to get to your 3rd attempt, then start thinking about preparing properly. So if you are worried that, oh, you missed a few weeks of studying, how should you prepare those? How do you make them up? Please consult with us. We'll make it urgent. We'll try to book you in and figure out and show you what our plan is for people that come in and register late, and how you'll be able to catch up with in the next few weeks. No problem, right? And you'll be better prepared that way for the exam. So good luck. for everybody trying to register. And if you get in, good luck as well. For hopefully you'll all pass the exam, and I'll see you guys in the next video.